I can make it for $10 and Matt is better than me and he can make it for $9.50, but nobody had any care for the end user. We came to the business and say, hey, we don't care how much it costs. We just care that the voice of the consumer is heard and that those needs and wants are translated into a functional product. At that, just kind of like, he was a chef, right? So listen to the customer, say, hey, well, how would you like your steak? To him, he will translate that, well, how would you like your pants? And then we will go and make the pair of pants or make the jackets or make the flashlight or any type of equipment that our end users needed.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. And you're going to want to hit the subscribe button. We got a long one for you today, but it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I can't say, but this may be my favorite episode so far. We got Francisco Morales, co-founder, just moved from being the CEO to executive chairman of 511. You may know the brand, 511 Tactical Gear. We're going to get into ignoring history and reality on the path to your goals. And he's going to talk about how to build a multi-billion-dollar brand while staying in harmony with your goals and your true self. Don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to the show and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, today is a wonderful day. We've got Francisco Morales, CEO of 511 Tactical. You've probably heard of it. You've probably seen the stores and the signs. CEO of a prestigious brand, a Venezuelan gentleman, which not everybody knows, philanthropist, wonderful family man, everybody knows that, ultra marathoner, Ironman, private comedian to a select few lucky individuals, and of course, a textile giant and brand manager extraordinaire. Francisco, thank you for making the time and welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt, thank you for having me over. Looking forward to the discussion today. And I have no idea what you have for me, but looking forward to it. You're always full of surprises, and I'm sure today will not be a different.
Over here, right as I started, my dog sits in my office and thinks I'm talking to him. I haven't talked for 3 hours. As soon as I start talking, he gets
like,
up.
hey.
Here he is, and it's going to get even worse, Francisco, even worse. But before we go way back and get into co-founding and leading 511 and get into LL Bean, Dick's, Royal Robin, what it means to be a CEO, I got to get from you, what is your definition of excellence?
It's a really good question. I think my definition of excellence is when you're able to achieve balance. And when I say balance, I'm not saying 50-50, I'm saying, this mosaic of your professional life, your friends' life, your community life, your contributions to society, to yourself, to your family, and you put it all together for what you want to achieve in life in harmony. If you're able to achieve that, I think that's pretty amazing. I think most of us tend to struggle with, either being just charging forward with your professional career or like, hey, I'm just not that driven. I'm just going to take it easy. But when you're able to put it all together, that to me is excellence.
So you've got the harmony of the professional friend community, society, self, whatever other plates you're spinning, and achieving what you set out for. And I just want to stress, and achieving.
Yeah, that is. Just think about it, it's pretty easy, which when we get into it, like I did in my early years, I just worked myself to death, and you just do that and you achieve your goals. But can you do that and also be present in other parts of your life and enjoy life and contribute to society? Can you do all that and achieve your goals?
And I've heard the argument that there is no balance, and I've heard the argument become your job. And I don't buy that. I believe in balance, but I also believe that balance can't be looked at on a daily basis. You're not going to balance every day. Can't be looked at it on a weekly basis. It's got to be looked at quarterly or maybe every year. Now, there are times when Francisco's on a plane and he's somewhere in Asia and he's somewhere in South America, and then he hits Europe and he's not with his kids and he's not with his friends and he's not helping his community. He's work. And there's times when he's taking a vacation and his phone is turned off. So you're going to have different moments where you're focused on different things. but able to achieve what you set out to do. You're going to be a good parent. You're going to be a good spouse. You're going to affect the community. You're going to crush it at work. Able to do all that over the course of a quarter or a year with different periods of time focusing on different things, right?
Yeah, whatever is important to you, whatever, well, first of all, I think you have to start with that. What do you want, right? Like, you kind of have to build
That
a
goal.
plan. Yeah, set goals and set a plan for yourself and expectations so that you have, even in your subconscious, I think it's critical that you have that wire in your head that, hey, this is where I'm going. This is what I want to become. So when things present themselves along the way that do not align to that, you go away from them. And when things do align to that, you go towards them. And you'll make those decisions many times subconsciously if you have wired yourself that way.
Yeah. So I also want to just take another side note here. I said goal, Francisco said plan. You can't just have a goal and not have a plan. And right now, this is going to be aired sometime in February, March, April. I don't know. It's time to be hunting for a job. It's not good enough to say, "Oh, I want to have a fantastic career." Well, what's the plan? And what do you need to change to get there? And what's the breakdown of the plan? And what do you need to do today to get to where you need to be tomorrow, to get to where you be the next day? And I've got my son upstairs with his buddies hanging out, and I've been hounding him. Dude, 6 more months. Have you started looking? Oh, yeah. How many minutes? I asked him, how many minutes? And I know it's minutes. No, it's hours, I said. You're going to need to spend 3 hours a day for the next 6 months writing cover letters, researching companies, doing interviews to get a career when you're a senior in college. It's not just the goal, it's the plan. And it works the same with your body. If you want to get your body together, if you want to get your sleep together, if you want to get your food together, if you want to change careers, if you want to get a promotion, there's a goal and a plan, and you're adjusting, and your balance is adjusting and adjusting. And we're getting deep into it. Before we get deep into this, before we get into co-founding and leading 511, before we get into building the brand and staying true to your customer, we're going to talk about staying true to your customer. I don't know if you saw my products on the back. Staying true to your customer. I am not the core customer, but I love 511. And Francisco doesn't care because he's not aiming for overweight 50-year-olds with bad backs. That's not why he makes these puncture-proof shoes over here that I have 5 different pairs of and I bought for all my friends because they're so comfortable. He makes them to protect people in the military or people in undercover police to make sure they don't have a needle go through their shoes. So there's a guy the Guy Kawasaki that said let 1,000 flowers grow. He's like number 2 or 3 at Apple. They made Apple and it got used for other things. Francisco makes clothes that I like, but he doesn't care. He stays true to the brand and he customizes things for them and he talks to them and he meets with them and he makes changes for them. But we're not getting into that yet. We're not getting into textiles. We're not even going to get into almond farming. We're going to get into what life was like in high school and college for Francisco because his path's a little different. Some of you listening right now might be on that different path. Maybe you didn't go to the premier high school and get the perfect grades and head out. Neither did Francisco. So what was life like for you and Francisco and where were you at? You have that romantic sound to your voice.
Yeah. So the accent, I grew up in Caracas. I was born and grew up in Caracas, Venezuela. My father was a Spanish tailor that had migrated, when he was in his teens and met my mother there, working together. And together they started a apparel manufacturing business. So my brother and I had the fortune of working with my father and my mother and learning the business from them. Work was never an issue for me. I was always a hardworking guy, good work ethic, but school was. I had a really tough time concentrating. I had a really tough time liking school. I didn't understand, where I was going to use half of the stuff that was there being taught to me and how I was going to make money doing, half of the math that was being taught to me and that I was studying so hard to take tests and all this stuff. So I had a really rebellious attitude towards school, so much that when I was 15, I told my dad, I'm done with this. I'm going to go work full time. And my dad agreed, but he said, you got to finish school. So I did a GED, the equivalent of a GED. And yeah, that's what I did. I barely graduated from high school. And then I came to the US when I was 19. I had been working already for 4 different parts of the industry, including, sales and manufacturing. And I really knew that I loved the fashion textile industry. So I came to learn English. And when I came here, then I realized I could go to Philadelphia, a school called Jefferson University today, but at the time was called Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, and actually study fashion apparel and textiles and things that I was very passionate about. And oh man, what a flip. That flipped the switch for me.
So, just to back it up a little bit, your father was a tailor. Is that what you just said in
Yeah,
Spain?
from
And
Spain.
he was already working in his teens. Met your mom in their teens. And
No. He migrated to Venezuela in his
then met your
teens,
mom.
and then he met my mom probably when in his 30s.
So did he migrate with his family, or did he just
No, by
decide?
himself. He migrated. He migrated by himself. At that time, he had family in Venezuela. At that time, the Canary Islands were going through some tough times economically, and a lot of people were migrating to the New World. And countries like Venezuela, if you had some type of skill, like in his case, he was a tailor, they would pay for your ticket to go there and give you an incentive because, Venezuela was a rich oil country that had a lot of money, but didn't have enough people to develop the country. So all these Europeans, Spaniards, Italians, Germans, they all came around that time.
And so when you were also in your teens and you were also making a big, brave change and going to another continent,
Yeah.
were you conscious that, hey, my dad did this, I want to do what he did? Or is it
You
just a
know,
coincidence?
I think in the back of my head that was probably some admiration towards my dad, like his courage to leave everything
Yeah,
behind
courage.
and his family to pursue a better future for him. For me, when I came to the US, I was only planning to be here for 9 months, so I was just more worried about my house at the beach that I wasn't going to be able to visit while I was here for 9 months, and I thought it was going to be really tough and living in the winter. And we go to the beach every weekend in Venezuela. We live right there in the Caribbean, so it was a good life, and I was really worried about living that good life to come for us Latin people. The U.S. can be a little bit boring, right? Like our
I
bars.
can't wait to go to South America with you.
Yeah,
in a
our
couple
bars
months.
close like at 6 a.m. You guys go to bed here like at midnight.
Wait, are you
So,
going to South America in a couple months?
in a couple months. No, I'm not going to that trip.
You are now. Uh, so, by the way, my kids will not listen to this. I do this. I started this for my kids. I wanted to capture my knowledge and capture my friends' knowledge. And then it became for my kids and my friends' kids. So this is really for your kids. I guarantee your kids listen to this. And Sydney, do not move to another country. We do not want that happening.
We do not want that.
My kids will never listen to this. They don't listen to anything I say. So I have no risk. But when Kennedy was in London, I'm thinking, oh no, please. And I have family in London too. Please don't stay there. Please don't stay there. So your parents are bumming. You're trying to honor them. And you came to the US for 9 months just to learn English.
Just to learn English, yeah. And that's when I realized that, I actually could have a career in a field that I was interested in. And when I say I flipped the switch, is what I changed. When I went to school, first of all, I was going to go for something that I was passionate about. So when I went
you were
to
in English school, not in Philadelphia.
No, when I went to learn English in Connecticut in a small school in New Haven, very close to Yale University, right there in New Haven, and I already, had done really well. Remember, I really struggled during the school in Venezuela. Then I came here and I say, hey, let's focus on the school and do a good job. So I did really well in the English school. And then when I went to college, I was presented with a concept that to this day has changed my life completely.
Okay, what is that?
And the concept was this notion around paradigm shift. I was really intrigued by it. They show us a video. Pretty much all the videos were about the fact that, whatever you put in your head, these limits that you put in your head, those are real limits, but they're really controlled by you. So they were showing, these ultra runners in Mexico, for example, that, the average Westerner at that time, ultra marathons were not a thing at that time, runs a 26-mile marathon, and these people run 100 miles like nothing. But to them, the distance of 100 is normal. To us, 26 was normal. So make a long story short, after the video, I was like, okay, so if this is true, what they're saying, and I bought it, if I think of myself as a student that just gets really good grades, if I think of myself that way and I emulate the behavior of people that get those type of grades, I will become that person. And I was so convinced that was true that I pushed myself so hard in my first semester and year of school. I did not party. I just was relentless. I was like, okay, I want to. I was watching, like the best students in the class. Like, what do they do? How do they take notes? I went and took a learning assessment. The school had a place that you could take a learning assessment, and they immediately were like, hey, no, you got to be careful. You don't assimilate when you read. You got to take what you've read and summarize it and put it. You have a visual memory. You got to put it kind of like in a spreadsheet and see it. You cannot just read this stuff. You got to synthesize.
They taught you how to learn.
They taught me how after I took some tests. So I did all this, Matt, and it was crazy. I mean, that semester, I got a 3.98. And remember, I just learned English.
Like, yeah, you just learned English, and you'd never gotten a 0.8 in your previous school.
Shit, I never gotten a B.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about it. So I was like, okay, this stuff really, really works. So then I continued to apply that, paradigm shift, graduated.
Like, Pete, I've known you a long time. So most of your friends don't know that you used to be even a little bit bigger than me.
Yeah. I was training to become a sumo wrestler in case the clothing business did not work. Was my plan B. But yeah, if you remember, we have a members trip to Japan, and I was hanging out with Shannon, one of our dear friends, and we were talking about this notion of paradigm shift, and she wasn't buying it. Mm. The story that I just told you, and she said, so you're telling me that if tomorrow you put in your head that you are a runner, that you will become a runner. And I said, yeah, exactly. I mean, I will start emulating the behaviors of a runner, and little by little, that will change, and my subconscious will start making decisions towards that. And next, I'm a runner. And she starts just laughing. And I'm like, okay, done. Tomorrow I'll start. So I went to the gym the next day. I remember Danny Sun and Shine was there, and he's like, what are you doing here? I said, I'm running. It's like, okay. And from that day, I went and started running. I ran my first mile. That was like, what an accomplishment. And I ran my first 5K. And then I ran my first half marathon. And then our friend, Joe Gerber, said, hey, I'm running a 50-miler. That's an ultra marathon. And I said, what? I'll run it with you. So I trained for that, and I ran my first ultra, and then I got hooked to that stuff. So I've been running ultras, since then.
And every once in a while, I'll be on the trail, pushing my button, and I'll run into Francisco, sprinting along almost at my pace. But I want to back up on this paradigm shift. So it's a purposeful paradigm shift. And I can't believe Shannon didn't believe it, because that's what Michael Phelps does. That's what the Olympians do. Shannon's been to all the speakers we've been to. She's read the books we've read. I mean, people know about vision boards, role playing, fake it till you make it, be the ball. But she just didn't believe that maybe it would work.
Either she didn't believe me, or she wanted me to bite the bait.
That's she was manipulating you.
Yeah, maybe she was challenging me and wanted.
Shannon, come manipulate me. My whole body's falling apart. I'm overweight. Come manipulate me. So the paradigm shift. And by the way, if you're in the car right now, pull over. Don't be riding while you're driving. If you're on 1.5 speed, that's okay. We always listen to this on 1.5 speed. But this is a concept that works. And Scott Olivet, who's a friend of ours, works on this envisioning, this focus. And if you listen, there's some patience in Francisco's voice. It won't happen right away. I'm not an ultra marathoner tomorrow, Shannon. Little by little, he said. So you have to be patient. And if you listen, we already heard Francisco talk about always being a hard worker. It takes work. He didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a runner and not run. He didn't think, oh, I'm going to be a runner and not eat well. He made a plan, like we talked about before. He made a plan. He had a goal. And it's not just the definition of excellence, able to achieve balance and achieve what you set out to achieve. The plan is part. So what Francisco's saying, way back at this school, they talked to him about paradigm shift. You never know what you're going to get out of school. Just sometimes these things hit. And he practiced it over the course of a lifetime. And now he's able to become an ultramarathoner. I'm sure you did it with 511. And 511 went from it was a $300,000 a year pants company when you met the original founder, right? And then you became all these other things. And, the jackets I wear, I don't know if you saw this. Got the shirts. Francisco knows that when my wife takes me to the beach, I go on his website because I can't say. I blew my back. I learned how to relax the last two weeks, laying on the floor, reading The Hope and the Glory. I don't know if you've read it.
No.
My Hope and the Glory. You got to read that with my map books out, studying the history of Israel on maps while I'm reading the history of Israel in The Hope and the Glory. And I learned how to relax. I didn't envision it. But as I laid there, I realized to myself, wait a second, I need to learn how to relax. I need to have a paradigm shift. What do people that relax do? Oh, they have to lay on their back all day because the doctor told them to. What am I going to do there? Am I going to watch TV? No, I'm going to relax and educate myself. So you've got this focus, this vision, this effort, this patience, which turns you into a good student. And again, you didn't go partying. You studied. You ate well. You slept in. So there's a commitment to your commitments. If you wrote down paradigm shift, write down commitment to your commitment. And so this is occurring there in Philadelphia as you're studying. What were you studying? You're studying fashion apparel management, right?
Yeah, that was the name of it, fashion apparel management. That's the first time I tried the concept. The second time I tried the concept was remember, for me to graduate first in my class, my dad, rest in peace, was telling my mom, this guy, there is no way that this is true. Like he's probably not even graduating from college when you go there. He's probably not even graduating, and he says he's overdoing it. Like he's telling you he's graduating. Cum laude. It's like my dad felt like
not too far.
Yeah, this is like But the second time that I did it, was very interesting. So now I'm in my mid, I would say low 20s or mid 24 or something like that. I get to my first job. A year later, I hire one of the guys that used to study with me. We were good friends. He was working my department, and he says, "Hey, what are your goals?" And I was telling him about paradigm shift, and I said, "And now I'm going to test this concept. I'm going to become a millionaire before I'm 29." And we're having a few drinks because this is Maine. It's a lot of snow. There's not much to do, and every time we were having a few drinks, he will pull out. This guy was an engineer. He will pull out a calculator and say, "Hey, Francisco, okay, you're making $34,000 a year right now. All right, let's assume that you start making $50,000 a year. Let's assume they start making $100,000. He will run every calculation, and he was like, there is no way that you're going to be a millionaire by the age of 30. And, I was wired that way. And then when I look back, all these different things happened in my life. I left that job for another job that had an opportunity to have stock options. With those stock options, I made money, and then I took some of that money, invested in something else. And then we joined another company. We sold that company. But by the time you realize, I was 29 years old. I was interviewing a YPO to join YPO, and I was a member of YPO at the age of 30. But I think all that happened because, you just relentlessly wire yourself that way. Again, that's something that I wanted. If I were to do it differently, I would say I would have liked to accomplish the same thing, but with more balance. You were talking about being overweight. Well, the overweight was, I was just focused on working. So I would leave the office and hit Taco Bell and like not eating all day.
Bean burrito with green sauce. How good is that thing?
Yeah, and like, 2 things of soda, and that would have been like my meal. And well, so if I had done that and I had been a runner and all this stuff, but I can't affect the past. I can only affect today. Sometimes not even affect the future. So back to our balance. That's where I go like, okay, yeah, you want to be able to, you can accomplish things like I did and will continue to do, but it gets more interesting if you can bring surround that by other activities.
And you could have run to the salad store instead of driven to the Taco Bell. You could have had a plan to be a healthy millionaire,
right?
By the time you're 30. And when we do life planning, I know you do it. I do it in my little my forums and my groups. I do it with my employees too. We break it down into categories. You have to have family and relationships. You have to have achievements. There's the spiritual and monetary wealth. There's the rituals. The healthy body. There is a kind of another side lesson that you threw in there that we brushed over real quick. And I just saw this in my business. I stopped sharing historical data with my team a couple of years ago. And I used to share historical data. Okay, last year we did X. Let's do more than X. And X stopped people thinking big. So a couple of years ago, I stopped, what did we do this same, because our business is cyclical. So what we do this same week 10 years ago, what we do the same week this year, how much better are we? Okay, we're doing better. I stopped doing that and boom, hockey stick growth occurred. And it's not the only reason, you're winding up the yarn, getting ready, getting everything fixed. But when your buddies come to you with a spreadsheet on why you can't do what they're saying, what you're saying you should do, when they're running all the scenarios, every once in a while, you have to ignore that.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you have to ignore the history. I made 35 grand, which naturally that means 50, which naturally means 75 or whatever the path is. So you're doing this paradigm shift and in your focus, and you're purposely doing it. You're purposely tuning out any possibility of any mental failure. Now, I'm sure Francisco's failed before. I've never seen it.
Oh, plenty of times.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm sure, and I know his family too. They're perfect as well. I'm sure that there was a close failure though, and it doesn't always work. But if you don't try it, it'll never work. If you don't do everything you can to do that paradigm shift. If you're listening right now, you're still in college. What do people do that get straight A's? What do people do that go to Harvard for business school? If you're already out of college and you're in a job and you're looking at transitioning, it's the same process. You want to change careers, you don't like it. It takes work. And that's what I was talking about with Jake a second ago. He wants a wonderful career. Well, there's a paradigm shift of I have to get it myself. What do people do? What do I need to emulate? What do I need to do differently? What's the path to my goal? And you ignore the naysayers and you get going. So you're sitting there in Philadelphia. Shout out to Philadelphia. What's your favorite cheesesteak?
Pat's, I would say.
Pat's, okay. And by the way, in Philadelphia, you want to see some funny driving, go to Philadelphia during a snowstorm. Nobody has a four-wheel drive. The whole city is hills, and every car is on ice. I've never seen so many accidents in one. And people are driving 85 miles an hour in Mustangs, just sliding everywhere. And I was at Pat's when I saw like 2 or 3 accidents. So you're there in Philly, and you've talked to me before about the school there. And what's the name of the school again now? I know
now it's called it's Philadelphia University on the Jefferson University system. So all the schools kind of merged together, and now they're under the umbrella of Jefferson University.
Okay, well, Francisco Morales loves Philadelphia University and the Jefferson University system. And before we got on the air, he was advocating for Jake to go get another degree there. So you were having a hard time in school understanding the link of math to your life, understanding the link of history to your life, understanding the link of science to your life. Then it got spun a little bit and you were shown how to learn. That was probably really important that you learned how to learn because you're winning now and it's easier to stay focused when you're winning. But you love the study of textiles and loved the study of fashion and apparel management. And that kind of pulled it out of you more. Looking back, and I haven't asked you this question before, do you see why math and science and history and those subjects that you were learning way back when really do apply to your business
Oh,
career?
I the best advice that I ever gave my kids, I say, hey guys, just trust me on this one.
Yeah.
Don't,
Yeah. Don't do what I did.
don't get behind on your fundamentals of math. Don't get behind on your fundamentals of science. You might not be able to connect them to why you need them, but later on, because what happened was, once I realized that I needed them, then I had to work extra hard in
And you have to
college.
go back and get them.
I had to get foundational classes that, my friends were not taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was fortunate that my college, was offered that. Kind of like I took some classes that they did not apply towards me graduating. Does that make sense? Like these classes were so basic that you
Me
didn't
too. I went to school after I got out of school and took an accounting program because I didn't take any counting. And I was going to be a math major, but after I took my first class, Calculus 2, and did so poorly on it, okay, I'm not a math major. And I didn't understand history. Why would I take history? I ended up getting a degree in history because you learn to read and write. That's it. It's not about, and I do love history and I love going places and understanding cultures. I mean, I can sit and talk to people from Venezuela or from Saudi Arabia or from wherever and know a little bit about them and relate to them and have a relationship in business. I know how to read and write. The math comes in all the time, and you're in the damn textile business. You're in a science business.
Oh, completely. I mean, the amount of, I hold myself a few patents, and, in many of these patents, I had to leverage my science knowledge and other people's knowledges. And so this is all important. It's not, it wasn't just my personal journey and my personal struggle with them, and then understanding that my brain needs to understand the why am I learning this in order for it to stick. And we all have, learning paths, right? Like we all have a different path that information goes from being available in the ecosystem to your brain and being able to relate it. You got to figure out what your path is.
And wisdom is time plus experience. So you figure out your path with time and experience. Now you can shrink the time by adding experience. So you come out of high school, you're working in the family business, learning a little bit, you kind of want to learn English, you end up staying. When you entered in, when this thing clicked, when you had this paradigm shift on yourself, when it all started to make sense, did you decide, oh my God, I got to get ahead, I got to separate myself, I got to start crushing it? Is that when it all clicked in and you went on the path to CEO?
I think, once I was in college, I think that click, I was relentless. I felt that the better times to party and have a good time were going to come later on. So I would say, I worked really hard. I had a couple jobs during college. I worked hard in my studies, and I did not want to be a weak professional. I did not want to go into the workforce not being knowledgeable. And when I got out of school, I probably read more textile books than I read when I was in school. And I was relentless. And to this day, I'm relentless at becoming good at what I do. Like one of my perks, I think, now this year, I'm transitioning into a new role within the company, becoming executive chairman, which, is a job that I get to be more strategic and look further forward ahead. And, the time that I'm spending right now just trying to understand artificial intelligence and how we should leverage that into the day-to-day job and being, how can 511 be an early adapter to better serve our customers and our consumers, and how it will change society. Just this constant learning. I think when you get comfortable in life, you will get bored.
So I want to get into this customer thing for a second, because it applies to anyone listening right now. They're going to be a lawyer. If they're the 511 of lawyers, they're going to have a following like no other. They're going to have growth like no other. They want to be an actor. They want to be an astronaut. And you got to figure out who your customers are. which Francisco did, and I bet you guys keep honing it down, honing it down. But before we get there, I got to give you my memory of your bio. You didn't send me a bio or a photo, so I'll make up my own photo if you don't send it, which you don't want. But as far as bio, I wrote it down. Grew up in Venezuela. Dad was in textiles. Went to school for textiles. Got into the almond business. Met the guy with pants. Grew. And then I went online. And by the way, finding your bio online is difficult because Richard Reisman's password protected all the newspaper articles to get your bio from. So I kind of pieced it together from LinkedIn. It was really, yes, grew up in Venezuela. Yes, family in textiles. Forgot about the English thing. Then Philadelphia University, where this passion play started. And you know you're in the right field when you're reading hundreds of books in your free time to support that field. But then you went into LL Bean, and I just want to mention the career path at LL Bean. Robin, part of this is what is the career path to CEO of a big clothing company. So LL Bean, raw materials engineer, then senior raw materials engineer, then manager. What is a raw materials engineer? That was your first real job?
Yeah, that was my first real job. And your job really is to either make materials that do not exist or find the materials that already exist, or modify materials. In this case, all 99.9% textiles, right? So my job was working with mills to engineer fabrics for LL Bean that were different than LL Bean, which was a great school for me. They were relentless when it came to quality. But one of the challenges that you have in textiles is when you make something of high quality, it might not be highly comfortable. And they also wanted to be highly comfortable. So a lot of the innovations that I was working on, and even here at 511, a lot of the innovations that we work on have to do with that, making something highly durable yet highly comfortable.
Like this, or wrong side, like this thing. I know I'm the most passionate about this shoe.
You are.
I am, and I know I'm not the target market, but this puncture-proof sole that could have been made out of metal, easily made out of metal, way easier than whatever you did, would not have been comfortable. I love it, not because I'm breaking down doors and saving the world. I love it because as a byproduct of whatever material you chose, it's the most comfortable shoe I have.
Yeah, no, I'm back to you, so maybe that speaks to how we design and do things at 511 and what you're saying about understanding your customers. So that particular project, like nothing at 511 gets designed without the input of operators. And we call operators, these people that are on the front lines, whether they're a cop, military, EMT. In this particular case, these are undercover cops that find themselves, let's say in a crack house or in a situation where there are needles, there are nails, there are blood. Things on the ground that there's blood, there's things that will puncture the shoe, and they're like, hey, we were undercover. We want shoes that are good looking, yet when we get called into this type of situation, it's an emergency. I cannot go change. I gotta go in with the same shoes that I'm wearing. So we want this type of good looking shoes that have that functionality. So our job is to take the form and the function and put it together in a package that, yes, looks cool, performs, and is comfortable.
And so as a raw materials engineer, did you take engineering classes? Is that?
Yeah, a lot of my, it's interesting because when I went to school, I wanted to be a textile engineer. That's what I wanted to do. And then after again, a shout out again to Jefferson University, Philadelphia University. Their career counseling was just amazing. And the guy's like, you seem to be more of a creative guy. Do you know what an engineer, pure engineer does? And I'm like, no. I said, well, if you went in on that path, you're going to be mostly monitoring production. Like that's where you're going to be. But if you go down this path, you could be kind of like developing the materials and engineering, like designing the materials, coming to them together, but how to manufacture them more efficient and all these things, that would be another group. And I say, okay, that's what I like. I like the creation part. So most of the classes that I took were around, fundamentals of textiles and understanding the basics of textiles, and then then building from there to more and more, to deeper and deeper knowledge, so that you now understood what machinery, what raw materials, how chemicals behave with certain fibers, and then when these problems come, that you can design a solution based on your knowledge and leveraging the other infrastructure that people have to create these materials.
Well, if every school had the Jefferson University System career counseling program, I wouldn't have a podcast. And we just did our strategic plan with Mike Cato, came and did our strategic plan for us at College Works. And one of the initiatives that we're focusing on is whole life learning, I'll call it. And I don't know what we labeled it in the planning. I'll know when I have it formalized in 2 weeks. But going beyond just here's how you do your job to, okay, let's do career counseling for you. Let's do life planning for you. We have a company psychiatrist now that people can use, psychologists can use whenever they want, because people in their 20s these days are facing a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And so why not just provide it for them? And that's just a big initiative of ours. And I wish the schools did a better job. My daughter, I actually had her send a complaint to Northeastern University today saying, my dad's upset by how you're counseling me on my academics. She's a chemistry major and she can't get out of being a chemistry major. Like, this is the wrong major for the kid. Same thing with your engineering. That's not how she thinks. She's a creative. So this wonderful university is doing this for you. If you work at College Works, call me up. I'll do it for you. If you're related to Francisco and you know who I'm talking to, I'll do that for you too. But if you don't find it at your school and you don't know me or Francisco, find it somewhere. Talk to somebody. What do you like? What do you not like? Take a DISC test. And so you're going through this new creative way of approaching the textile industry that you didn't know about before. And that's what career finding is about. We're still not to where he's at. We're on the path to where he's at. So you go through this kind of metamorphosis in what your goals are, and then again, and then again, and then again. And that's the life path to your end career. I tell people you're going to change your career 6 times. That's what the scientists say, not me. And career is after being not ever going to college, not going to be in the apparel management side. You were in the manufacturing side, then going to college, then a raw materials engineer, and through that whole career path to raw materials manager, switching gears to DICS, and now you're in product development, which is a little bit different. You're using the stuff that the raw materials engineers are coming up with to make products, and then design manager, and then director. So what happened there? Why did you change? And what was the difference at DICS and at LLB?
Yeah, at that point, and this is, for the people watching the podcast and listening in, you got to start your journey somewhere. I knew I wanted to be a CEO, but how do you just show up and become a CEO? I knew I wanted to run a business. I know that's where my passion is. I love working with people. I love creating things. But so, at that point, I had been exposed to the different areas that were necessary to create a product. I knew how to design, I knew how to develop, I knew everything, but had not done it all together at once. When I went to DICS, it was a new department that I was creating with another individual. He was my boss, brought me in to be kind of like the technical guy, and it's like, okay, let's go. So I started designing the products, sourcing the products, coming up with the brands, doing all these things. And that, of course, gave me a lot of experience, because now I was doing all these things and kind of understanding, like I was never formally trained, for example, as a designer. Like a designer goes through a path. I received basic design training. Some of our best-selling products here in the company were designed by me. So
Same with Scott Olivet. Scott Olivet's not a designer, can't draw. Some of the best-selling products at Nike and Oakley were designed by him.
So you just got to go and explore different things. But if you're sitting on the sidelines because you're looking for the perfect job, you're waiting for the perfect opportunity, you're waiting for everything to be perfect, you're just wasting your time. I mean, one of the jobs that I had that had the most influence on my work ethic was when I worked with my family in the business, and my dad put me as the assistant of the truck. So you go in the truck to deliver, products and to deliver textiles and pick up stuff. The driver is not supposed to do anything. The driver is driving and then there are two guys that sit with the driver, and you load, unload, and do all this stuff. But the driver happened to be a guy that, as a kid, suffered of polio and walked all crooked. And this guy, we will get to a place, he will get out, and I'll work the two of us. Like, this guy had a work ethic that, I couldn't keep up with the guy. And I was.
Did your dad put you with him on purpose?
I don't know, probably. So this guy and I eventually said, you know what, let's get rid of the second person. So him and I used to go everywhere and tackle everything together because, I was trying to keep up with him.
These are life lessons.
Yeah, I was trying to keep up with him.
Your ass, and you get rid of the guy that's not doing anything, all in the same truck ride along.
Yeah, him and I was trying to keep up with him. We had another person, then this person was always lazy, so we kept firing the person that will help us. But again, back to the life lesson was, just take a job, go at it. And once you're done with that job, at the same time that you have a job, you could be looking for another job, but don't be sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect job to show up. That's not how it works.
Yeah, it does work that way. But you had to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then business school, 10 jobs to get to it over the course of 20-something years. So it'll get there. It just doesn't get there right away.
Exactly.
Sitting on the sidelines, that 10 or 20 years might be your entire lifetime.
That's right.
Wasted. So you go through that. It's interesting. You want to be a CEO? Francisco knows all elements of the business. I mentioned I took accounting classes. You need to know Scott Olivet, who we mentioned before. Francisco and I are a good friend of ours. He told another friend of mine, Ted Lee, if you want to be the CEO someday, you need to move from sales to operations. And he was head of sales for Oakley, and he moved into operations, and then he ended up at Quicksilver, I think, as president of Quicksilver. Because Scott said you need to have this well-rounded knowledge, and Scott was the respected CEO at Oakley at the time. So then you go to Royal Robbins, which I believe brought you to California, right? Wasn't that the great?
Yeah, that's when I joined my partner, who was a YPO, amazing entrepreneur. He had bought Royal Robbins, and I joined him as his minority partner to turn Royal Robbins around.
And was the Royal Robbins the company that made the pants?
Yeah, the Royal Robbins made a pair of pants called the 511 pants, named after a climb rating in Yosemite, and these pants became.
And you were in Fresno, right? Right by
Modesto, California.
Right by Yosemite. Okay.
Yeah, Modesto, California, and the pants had become to this day they're the issue pants of the FBI Academy. So when you go up there to train, they issue 2 pair of pants, and then in 2003 with this
2 pairs.
Yeah, you're just there for a certain amount of time.
They get 2 pairs of pants. Okay.
Yeah, that's your uniform. So you get issue of 2 511 polos, I think, and two pants. And then in 2003, we realized, wow, this is such an underserved market. Nobody was really innovating from performance perspective for police, military, EMT. So we created a company that was gonna do that, just really drive performance for these end users, just like Nike does for runners, right? And other companies do for other sports. This was kind of like an orphaned industry where everybody that was innovating around cost innovation. So what does that mean? I can make it for $10 and Matt is better than me and he can make it for $9.50, but nobody had any care for the end user. We came to the business and say, hey, we don't care how much it costs. We just care that the voice of the consumer is heard, and that those needs and wants are translated into a functional product. And we started doing that. My partner, came from the restaurant business, and he's still so good at that, just kind of like, he was a chef, right? So listen to the customer, say, hey, well, how would you like your steak? To him, he will translate that, well, how would you like your pants? And then we will go and make the pair of pants, or make the jackets, or make the flashlight, or any type of equipment that our end users needed.
By the way, I have this many of your life lessons written down. So you meet this guy, you go into business with him, you're making the pants, you decide, hey, we can do this with more than pants. We can bring this customer-centric focus. and design focus and practicality focus to other elements in the same core. They didn't go make car tires. They didn't make weaponry. They stayed in their core competency. That's another little lesson. You get up, figure out what your horse is and ride it. You need a horse. You can get a different horse, but textiles was their horse. And you start expanding, and then you went to Thunderbird, because I know you went to Thunderbird.
Yeah. I went
the business going while you're in business school.
Yeah. We sold the business, a large portion of the business in 2007. And I decided, maybe I needed to take a sabbatical, and I took a sabbatical and I started another business, the almond business in California.
That's where the almonds come from.
Yeah, I started.
You got off your horse.
Yeah, I got off. Well, the family had been in farming for many years, and I had that bug, and so I started the almond farming and started another manufacturing business that still own in Vietnam, where we make technical apparel, and I went to business school, so that was kind of like my sabbatical. That's when I went to Thunderbird, which there wasn't also maybe I think for the listeners, one takeaway from my MBA. The time that I did my MBA. It was different than when I did my undergrad or when I went to school early on. I think the philosophy of teaching, at least at that time at Thunderbird, has changed. I don't know if it has changed all over, but the thought was, you should focus on your strengths and build up on them, because if you focus on your weaknesses, even if you work really, really hard, at best you'll be average. But if you focus on your strengths, you could be brilliant. You could be amazing. It doesn't mean that you don't take care of your weaknesses.
So they steered you back to 5'11"?
Well, it's more about, think about it like, I'm a very creative person by nature. The way that I think, ideas, problem solving is very fluid. It's not linear. So, for example, if I work really hard to become really good at cranking these crazy spreadsheets that are very linear,
you're still going to be bad.
I'm still going to be bad. I mean, I have people here in the company that can build a rocket with a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
You're never going to beat them.
And there is no need. We work as you work as a team.
Yeah.
And then you bring your. It's kind of like, I think about it like a talent potluck, right? You bring your dishes to the potluck, and then other people bring their dishes, and you just make a feast. And that's why I'm also a big believer. When I put our team against other teams, I say bring it on, because we are like so crazy about cross-functional collaboration, meaning collaborating across different functions within the company. We're very confident, let's put it that way, on our ability to serve our consumers and customer better than our competitors.
So there's this book called Strength Finder. There's a test called Strength Finder. There's this whole theory of focus on your strengths, not your weaknesses. If you focus on your weaknesses, you just have better weaknesses. I throw one caveat in there, depending on age. I don't know that a 20-year-old knows what their strengths and weaknesses are. I gave my daughter the DISC test, so I knew chemistry was going to be a weakness. The DISC test doesn't work till you're 19. So I give yourself a break until you're 19 or 20. And then I'm not detail oriented. I can't be an accountant. I can't do the spreadsheets. I'm not super creative, right? I've got other strengths. I found those in my 20s. And based on when you went to Thunderbird, you were about 30 when you went there.
Yeah.
You found them in your 20s. So the 20s is your discovering of what your strengths are. And you still work on your weaknesses a little bit because they may pop up. You may not be organized. That's not a strength or a weakness. That's something to get done.
Yeah.
So don't get confused on that, but you're finding that you've got this creativity. You heard about it at one school, at the Philadelphia school. You hear about it at Thunderbird. You kind of lived it, and then you come out of Thunderbird. How'd you end up back at
No, it was a sabbatical. I was supposed to come back, so then I came back. But Matt, I would really like to emphasize what you just said, because you don't know what you're good at or bad at it until you really work on it and try it. You cannot be, like, for example, when I was in Venezuela, I was really bad at English because I was a bad student. So by default, anything that required studying, when I moved to the US 3 months later, I was like very good at establishing conversations. So although I don't speak English perfectly and I have an accent and all the things, nowadays I realize, I'm pretty decent at languages. So I speak like 2, 3 languages, bad, but I speak them, right? So I would have not known that unless I did it. So don't hold yourself back, especially if you're in your early 20s. Try everything, and then you start figuring out, okay, normally you're good at the stuff that you enjoy. At least that works for me. Stuff that I enjoy. And enjoy doesn't mean that it's no work. Like I enjoy
You don't
running.
enjoy all of it. You enjoy most of it.
Yeah, like running, for example. To this day, the first mile when I go to run, I freaking hate it. Like if I run because I feel like running, I will never go running. But is that third, fourth mile that once you're there, you're like, oh, those endorphins start kicking in. So
but before you start giving up, you need to run 100 miles in whatever you're doing and you're about to give up on.
Exactly. Try. Push yourself. It's like, hey, I'm not organized. Okay, try to be organized. See if it works. Hey, I cannot draw. Try drawing. Like push yourself. Like push yourself in areas that you never try, because you don't know.
Yeah, and if you're 19 years old and you're listening to this right now, remember that 6 years ago your mom was ironing your underwear and cutting the crust off your bread. You've only been a functioning adult for 2 years. You're still living on someone else's dime, most likely, if you're 19 years old. So you got to get out there, and it happens in your late 20s and your 30s. And then you just invest all the energy you're working on your weaknesses that aren't that weak anymore because you worked on them into these things that are your strengths. So you start check. Go ahead.
No, and don't forget what I told you about the paradigm shift. If you're 19 and you set a goal and you say, this is what I want to become, that will send you on a path. It's kind of like, putting a coating on the back of your head that you don't even know that you put it there. Of course, you think about it every day. You revisit it every day. To this day, I have very aggressive goals. I wake up in the morning, I have them written on my phone, I have a coffee, and I open them every morning and I read, this is what I want to become. This is what I want to do. And I just repeat it. And I truly believe that, by doing that subconsciously, I'm making decisions, small decisions that end to outcomes later on.
Yeah, you're reprogramming your subconscious every morning. We've talked about it on this show all the time. Most of the people that are successful have a morning ritual and a PM ritual. Most of the people that are successful have goals that they reset and they review. Francisco's ritual is the goal. He's reading them every day. And actually, I just did this with Jill. We broke down her calendar. We helped her build some rituals in the morning. We helped her build some evening rituals to kind of get herself to the next level. And every morning she does the same thing: coffee, walk the dog, meditate, and then think about her goals and her plan. And so you're doing it, Jill's doing it, I'm doing it. I actually have my goal sheet sitting right here. Here it is. Right on the top of my pile. Boom. And I got it all circled up and marked up today. These are the ones I'm working on today. So that's what we're doing. And so Francisco's come a long way, but we didn't talk too much about 511. Real quick, 511, we've already talked about the customer-centric focus, meeting with the customers. The customers design things, taking customers' desires. And I'm wearing one of the jackets, and if I was undercover, it'd be cool because I can reach through my pocket and reach into another place to get my gun. They've got these I use them to store my phone. I know they're not supposed to be used for phones and gum. But it's designed for these people that have specific needs. And there's all these products that way. And so 511 went from this very small company making pants, and I learned this from Scott as well, making slight steps in their core competency, taking the technology and the focus and the attitude towards customers from pants to shorts, and from shorts to a t-shirt or a polo, and then maybe a jacket. I bet you didn't get shoes for a long time, right?
We did it a couple of years later. The beauty at that point is that, we knew how to make products, any type of product. Plus, we had the best in the best out there that we could bring along. So, I'll give you an example. One time, we were with this group of snipers, and they said, "Man, it would be great if somebody could put the com-ops in a watch." And it's like, "What the heck is the com-ops?" And they're like, "Well, when you shoot at a distance, the bullet travels this way, and you have to take the wind velocity, the caliber, the angle of attack, and you put all these variables into these tables, and it gives you how you should adjust your scope, like one click to the left, to the right." And we're like, well, if it's a mathematical equation, we probably could figure out. So, that year we went to one of the best watchmakers that we knew in Asia, and we explained to him what we were trying to do. He said, well, let's get some old former Casio engineers from the Philippines. They're the best. They could do. Then we got a guy that had the software. So we put this whole group together. Next, we had this beautiful.
You had a new potluck.
Yeah, we had a new potluck of team people that could put, and we made this amazing watch that could calculate the com-ops, and it was amazing. Of course, that technology became obsolete once you could put it in a phone, but it just shows you that we had no boundaries. If the customer wanted X, we would put the right team around that problem and come up with a problem, and that's what 511 does today.
Is that your core competency? Taking a customer's ideas and make it into a practical product?
I would say yes. Normally, it's more we're taking a customer's problem,
okay,
and we're translating it. Like right now, the team is working on some probably cannot talk about that, but yeah, just crazy stuff to help our
people.
Our people do a better job
helping us.
In the front lines, just solutions that just make a big difference. And at the same time, we have people working on fashion type of products that have a lot of functionality. So we do all that today. We have 124 stores in the US. We have a presence globally, and a fan base. I will say that grows every day. And see that I didn't call them customers. I mean fans. I mean, these are people that love us and we love them. They love our products, and we are just stoked to be making more of these innovations that people appreciate and like.
So are you surprised at where you're at now? I know your dad would be surprised based on what you said earlier. Are you surprised?
I don't think my dad was surprised on the business side, because I was always very entrepreneurial since I was a kid. I was always good at making money and doing all these things. He was surprised on the academic side. I actually, to this day, I'm surprised, and that's why I'm a big believer into paradigm shift. And then, of course, once I tested it with running, I was even more surprised because, while I was telling Shannon that whatever you put in your head, you can become, I was kind of doubting if it will really work for running. And Matt, you get it because you used to know me before, right? So no, I think, as far as I'm concerned, the party just got started. I have, big ambitions. I don't feel that I am my final destination. I am in the journey of continue to become better and better at what I do, personally and professionally. Probably a little bit behind on the personal side, so there's some catch up to do there. And that's, kind of when I was trying to allude to like, hey, you got to find, how to do all together. It's like, it was easy for me to do it on the professional side, and there is some catching up to do on the personal side.
We're going to get this episode out early, and shout out to Sean Baldwin. Francisco is not on the list. He needs to work on his personal side. He needs to come on the trip. How could you be missing this trip? Well, I've got one more question for you. You were on the last one. One more question for you, and then we're done. What sacrifice did you make in your 20s looking back? And it was a sacrifice that you look back and you say, man, I am so glad I did this. I'm so glad I made that sacrifice. It's not even a question. It wasn't even really a sacrifice.
Yeah, so when I got out of school, again, the options were open. I could have moved to New York City, or I could have moved to Maine and work at LL Bean. And financially, when I did the math, and I was like, well, money is going to go longer because, a longer way. This New York paid more, but the rent was like 4 times as much. I also felt that I was going to be more focused. There were going to be less distractions, and I could focus on work versus, partying. Like any young person, I love partying. So I had to
spread it out over 50 years.
Yeah,
get up early and spread it out.
exactly. So that's really what I did. I was like, hey, to this day, I love to party, but I do it with balance, right? You don't want to burn all your fuses, in your 20s. You want to you want to be able to have a long career. So I would say, saving money, working hard. I personally always stayed away from drugs. That has been something that for me, I seen other friends go the wrong way with that. I was like, I also have an addictive personality. So when I go into something, I go in big time. So I always stay away from that. So I would say that, saving money and working hard probably are the.
And May, your sacrifice was moving to Maine. I want to go check out Maine. I want to see the fall.
Beautiful. It's the most beautiful place you can visit in the world, especially in the fall. It's just one of the best kept secrets out there.
I can't wait when Kennedy goes to Boston next year. She's in Oakland right now, so she did London, Oakland. We get to go up there and we get to see the fall. We're actually going up there for Halloween. We're going to go to Salem. We're all excited about the leaves.
It's amazing.
Well, Francisco, I got to tell you, this is the longest episode we've ever recorded. I kept looking at the clock because I wanted to respect your time, but then I didn't want to because you came up with such great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing with everybody out there. Shout out to your kids. Make sure you listen to your dad's recording. It's awesome. Have a great, happy New Year. I'll see you in the very near future, and I'll make sure you're on the list for the Baldwin trip.
All right, Matt. Thank you for the friendship all these years, and thank you for having me over. And good luck and many blessings to everybody on their life journey. Enjoy it. It's only one, so enjoy it.